Hello, welcome to Coram Deo podcast. I'm Pastor Samuel, one of your hosts, and over directly in front of me.
Over on the directly.
Over directly in front is me.
It's main man Philip. And then in the laughing corner is Tabitha, who's in charge of many buttons. I say many now because I too have buttons.
Ooh, shared responsibility.
Shared responsibility. See, now I can choose which camera is actually on. And there's a camera for my face instead of just complete side view. You know what I'm saying? Give the people what they want.
It's a me point of view.
Yeah, it is you point of view. And we have a special guest today,
Whoop whoop.
Maddie Rowe.
Whoop whoop.
Where's the applause?
Where's the applause button? There we go.
Is this your
All right.
headphones right there?
Maddie, tell our audience about who you are.
I'm Maddie Rowe. I'm 12 years old. I moved here from Tennessee a year ago.
Yeah.
I started going to this church in last year. No, 2022 last year?
I think you came 2021, but
yeah,
it was like
it was 2021.
December, November.
Yeah, no, somewhere about there. And no, it was like in January.
Yeah.
Somewhere in January then.
Yeah.
Because we tried out a different church and it did not work. That's all I remember.
Didn't
But-
work. The doors didn't open.
No.
It didn't
It
church.
just didn't
That
either.
church
It's
did not
just
church.
No, that's not what I meant.
The pews are too cold.
Anyway,
It's too
she's
cold.
joining us today, so she's our special guest. We call it the laughing corner because basically those two just laugh the
That's fact.
entirety of
true.
youth group.
That's fact.
And if it's not, everybody laughing, it's just them. But when everybody's laughing, it's because Maddie said something hilarious.
fact.
That's true.
There's
That's
some
true.
times for like almost a year, I said something and it's just been going on.
Which
and
one?
on.
We actually,
Yeah, this is-
so we
actually-
actually
Multiple
wanted
things.
potentially you to sit over there so you could look behind in the camera and say, I thought I was a good girl.
That would have been so good.
So that's an inside joke, everybody. If you don't know, you don't know.
That's true.
That's true.
If
It's
you
just
do
fact.
know,
And if you
How?
if we explained it to you,
It wouldn't
you
be
wouldn't
funny.
care.
Yeah,
It
it would
wouldn't-
take.
it would be
try
like,
to
okay.
understand. It's like, oh,
forever.
All right. So everybody knows who
Empty.
all of us are. So today we're going to be discussing the new series that we have started at youth group, and that is A More Excellent Way. A More Excellent Way. It kind of follows 1 Corinthians, right? It's chapter after Paul is explaining all of the spiritual gifts. And so let's dig in. What is a more excellent way? Let's have some thoughts before I just expound.
So the
Those
more
are deep
excellent
thoughts.
way was
Deep thoughts.
deep thoughts.
the lifeline, the bloodline of heaven, the fuel of heaven, which is love. And I thought that was really powerful the first time I heard that. It made everything that I felt and heard make sense. Because I think you're the first person that's ever said that in my life.
Well, maybe your life. Probably not in the first place.
No, but any person that I've ever heard talking about gifts of the Spirit, it had nothing to do with love, and it didn't have that. If you're doing it had that if you're doing them without love, but it didn't have that emphasis. Like it was kind of like an afterthought
Okay.
of like, if you're doing all of this without love, then it's not important. But you took it a step further and explained why. Like why, if you're praying for people to be healed, it doesn't truly impact anything unless you're doing it to love them and love the Lord.
Right.
Because it's so common for people to use their talents or their giftings from the Lord without wanting to know him or love people.
Right.
And so, like, having that said out loud, because everyone knows it, but having it said out loud and explained and, like, foundation, you laid the foundation and had that time for it to solidify in people that hear it.
And I think people know that that's the right answer, but they don't believe that that's the right answer.
Right. Yeah. So I just thought that was really powerful to say, like, it doesn't, because the truth is, like, if you don't do anything for the rest of your life except for love Jesus, and that's good in God's eyes. I mean, that's not what he wants, but if you don't pray for people, if you don't do all this, like, if you stay right here right now for the rest of your life and didn't do anything but praise God, then he would be happy.
Well, so it's actually about loving God and loving his people. And so what love actually does is compels you not to be like stagnant.
Totally.
Right,
But I'm
so-
saying, I think what I'm meaning is, like, instead of going out and doing all the things to love God without actually loving him, without actually loving the people,
Yeah.
he's still happy with that more than he'd be happy with you going to pray for people so you can get a badge.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Because there has been times when I am in a room of people and they're like, oh, I prayed for this person and they got saved. And everyone's like, oh, how'd you do that? Like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, he didn't though. Like, he was just, like, available. And so it was, like, more the emphasis on the person getting the person getting them saved. And I was like, no.
Could be. It could be that person, that's something that was put on that situation.
Right. That's what, like, the people around them weren't like, oh, praise God. They were like, oh, how did you do that?
Well, it's exciting because they're like, oh, you're a regular person.
Yeah.
Because so much of Christianity has been these special, like the ideology of these special people get to do those cool things, but I don't.
Right.
So when you're in a ministry school and you meet Joe Schmo, who's kind of a jerk sometimes, and he just introduced someone to Jesus, you're like, how did you do that?
That's a fair question.
Actually, the idea where the gifts are fueled by love, I think, like, where I got that emphasized from was Sean Bowles.
That makes sense.
Do you know who Sean Bowles is?
I do not, but I have heard.
The name.
No, actually, I've never heard the name.
Oh.
But I've heard like this setup before.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, in kids' church, it's surprisingly that kind of.
Surprisingly in kids' church.
Surprisingly
Kids'
at
church
church.
is terrible.
Well, okay. I say surprisingly because like it was one of the few things that like made me like actually like think.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just like oh, this is a learning time or whatever. It was actually like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because like I forget the main sermon because it was so long ago, but it what stuck out to me was like the fruits of the spirit. If you like usually it starts love and works its way down.
Yeah.
But like
If you read it opposite?
well, if you flip it upside down, love becomes like the root. And so
Yeah.
everything else becomes
Right.
like what grows through love.
That's
And
good.
so that always just like stuck with me. I was like, wow, that's
Yeah. I mean, because we
Intense.
Deep.
forget that it says the fruit of love, like the fruit of the Spirit is love in all of its attributes,
Mm-hmm.
which is the list explains what love looks like.
Yeah.
So we forget that because we just memorize it and know
Right.
the trigger words:
Trigger words.
love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness.
I'm so triggered right now.
I'm so triggered.
Good.
So triggered. So the importance of this subject, we actually started off with like defining what love is, because if you get around a bunch of people and then you start talking about a certain subject and then you realize their definition is a lot different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we need to make sure that we have a proper definition of love. And what I was talking to the children, to Maddie,
The key.
the kids, man, it's about the kids, was that the world, by and large, is getting a monopoly on defining things.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually defining things a lot quicker, stealing things actually that are true and just completely redefining them. And so if we don't go to God to define these things for us, then the world is automatically giving us a really bad picture, a tainted picture. Not necessarily all really bad, but it's just a tainted picture. It's off without the source of the guy who made it, right? And so that being, kind of the cornerstone of this whole conversation, that God gets to define these things for us. And there's tons of scripture, but John 15:13, no one has greater love than this, than to lay his life down for his friends. John 3:16 through 17, right? And then 1 John 3:16. It's all connected, man. It's all connected. Did you guys see that thing? That there is 65,000 cross references in the Bible. So cool.
Yeah, it was a really cool picture.
So crazy. So love is selfless, and love doesn't allow me to let you do something stupid. Basically because, okay, here's what the world does. Oh yeah, Philip, you should like totally cut off your hand and get a sword instead. Right there, man. Like
Right there.
just do it. Do what you want, man. You want to be, what's his name from X-Men? Yeah. Go for it. Just chop yourself up, mutilate yourself. You be whoever you want to be, man.
However
Live
you feel.
your best life, however you feel right now, today, be that. You want to, you changed. You want to be a cow? Moose-skidoo, bro. Moose-skidoo.
What is
Do
that?
Go ahead and moo-moo. And yet, what I'm really doing is allowing myself to be comfortable and not confronting something in your life. It's like, okay, man, hey, you're going to lose your hand forever for this sword. You really think that's a good idea? How are you going to pick stuff up? It's not going to work. You're going to be married one day, and you're going to sleep in a bed, and you're going to have a sword for a hand.
Well,
how's this going to work?
You're going to be sleeping with a sword before you get married. So I'm just saying, that sounds pretty painful.
Right? That's an extreme example. But in this world, not so extreme, unfortunately. So it's an uncomfortable conversation, primarily for me, right? Like, Philip doesn't necessarily feel uncomfortable, but clearly, if he wants a sword for a hand in the scenario, he is mentally not well. So he doesn't care how I feel.
Well,
But
I think it goes also back to the truth that disagreement is not like
Love doesn't mean
agreement doesn't equal love.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes back to that foundational truth.
And that's really important. Thanks for bringing that up. So, like, in our world, agreement equals love. Acceptance equals love. And love cannot equal, it does not equal acceptance. It doesn't equal agreement. Because if love had to agree, then God would have to change his ways to my ways.
Because that ain't love, that's tolerance.
Yeah. That's like basically ultimatums is
and
what it is.
There would be no point of Jesus Christ
and there's no point in Jesus coming. And what's actually happening is then now we are creating God into our image over time. If we think that love equals agreement, because like humans are beautiful creations that God made, but we have this bent to think that we can do things better than him, and we automatically think that we're like the smartest person in the room. Some insecure people would argue with me, but you're going to argue with me that no, I don't, because I'm insecure. Why are you insecure? Because blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you believe what's in your head over what God is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Snap. So you think you're more correct than God.
Mm.
I just blew your mind. Maddie's over there picking up brain parts.
Oh my gosh.
Picking up brain matter.
You can
So,
laugh into that microphone.
I didn't know
Yeah, you can talk.
We just want to hear you.
You can be
can-
here.
that. Okay.
Interrupt and
Okay.
push and shove.
Push and shove.
Okay.
So yeah, with God's love, okay, it's not God's job to agree with us.
Mm.
It's our job to agree with him.
Mm.
And so, again, going to him to define things and going to him to see what truth is really important. And then knowing that allows me to say, hey, like, I don't get everything, or I don't know everything right. I don't get everything right with God, but I know the source. And then I don't have to be afraid of other people who disagree with me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be afraid, and I don't have to stop loving them because we disagree or because I don't accept their lifestyle.
And disagreement stops becoming a threat
Yes.
because you can accept, like, okay, I don't actually know everything, so maybe their point of view is right, or maybe, like, I'm not saying
Right.
to those extreme,
Not those extreme
not
ones,
the
but
yeah, I'm talking about like views of God and everything, but like if you
views on
can't
Taylor Swift.
if you can't disagree with anyone, then you're never gonna grow.
Well,
Like-
that's also kind of the underpinning conversation within this conversation. Because if God, it's our job to agree with God.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be offended by God
Mm.
pretty often. Like if we were following Jesus today, we would be offended pretty much daily, I would
Mhm.
assume. Because he's perfect. He does things that break cultural norms.
Yeah.
Till this day, because you know what? He ain't dead. So,
Well, even the way that he deals with other people would offend us.
other people.
Like other people's things that offend us. So like Philip does something that offends me, Jesus deals with him. I'm like, why didn't you deal with him the way I wanted to deal with it? You know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
like in every way, if you're not allowing yourself to be in an environment or relationships that disagree or offend you, you're stunting your own growth, and you're actually not experiencing what
Right.
love actually is, and you're not
And-
living, and you're not loving
Right.
fully,
You're not actually laying your life down, which is what Jesus did. Right.
and calls us to do.
And calls us to do. If you love me, you would do my commandments. So there's things that, it's kind of a marker for us. It's kind of like, if we only are with people that we agree with 100%, which, I mean, I'm married. I don't even agree 100% with my wife. So
Yeah.
you're going to be a very lonely person. And your relationships are going to be extremely stifled, that's a whole other conversation that is desperately needing attention as well. But like this whole cancel culture stuff,
Right.
because at the root of it, it is selfishness, and you're not laying your life down for people. But as to the gifts, this is important because love is the fuel of it. And if you can't choose to love somebody because you disagree with them, you're not even going to want to be around them, let alone bless them with like things of the Spirit.
Yeah.
Bless them with the presence of the Lord. And so you're going to create distance from the very people who need to experience those things.
Right. Or from the people that God put in your life to grow you.
Yep.
It applies to so many areas of life. I feel like especially in church, like I just see a ton of people like cutting out churches because they disagree with, maybe 1% of what they talk about. And they're like, that church is evil. Actually, that church just follows Jesus differently than you, and you're offended by it. And you're scared because they look differently than you. But what if you just took the good stuff,
Yep.
Don't throw the
You don't
baby
have to
out
agree.
with the bathwater. But take the good stuff, sidestep the stuff you don't quite agree with. Perhaps that's something God's going to bring into your life and give you revelation on. You don't know. But you're just stifling everything, good and bad, instead of being like, wow, that makes me highly uncomfortable. I wonder why. Is it actually from the devil, or is it because I don't understand it and I want to understand everything?
Yep.
With that scenario, because there are two events that could happen with that. If you're hurt by a church because you disagree with something that's not necessarily unbiblical, you just don't like it, or they are preaching something non-biblical.
Right.
If you act out in love, you wouldn't necessarily leave the church, because love doesn't tolerate. Love doesn't, like, if what the pastor is saying is false, you leaving, you're just allowing that to just fester. You're like, oh, this is, hands are clean.
Right.
This is their own thing. I'm
Yeah.
just going to get out of here and go find something better. But if it's just something that you're offended by, you're not loving yourself.
Right.
You're continuing that hurtful lifestyle of something
Mhm.
that God is literally telling you, like, hey, you need to change this.
Yep.
Oh, no. Pastor says something. No, I can't get rid of that.
Right.
I don't.
Or add something in,
Right. So with both those scenarios, acting out in love, there is no necessarily leaving the
Ditch.
church.
Running out.
You either saying, hey, out in love, talking to the pastor, be like, hey, so the Bible actually says something different than this.
Mhm.
Or
You know,
looking at
asking
yourself and saying, oh,
questions.
wow,
Yeah.
actually, I didn't really understand that.
Yeah.
I believe that because this is what I was used to. This is what I grew up with. Or this
Right.
is
Yes.
what my friends say, what my family says. But wow, hearing that,
Totally.
that kind of blows my mind. I should actually dig into that. Let's see what the Bible says on that. Let's see what God is saying, if I need to change something in my life or whatever like that. So
That's good. Because there's a lot of like cultural Christian things that we say or do that aren't actually in the Bible. Like there's a lot of things that we deem as Christian beliefs that aren't. Like God loves, or God takes care of those who take care of himself. That's not in the Bible. Like, but we've adopted that in so many ways, and it's just not true. Like, I mean, I'm not saying live off the government. I'm saying that's not biblical. Like, God's going to take care of you.
Right.
Period. Because that's who he is. You don't actually have anything in this equation. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, with that, it's like, so I've believed this I've believed this my whole life, and then a pastor or somebody says, that's not in the Bible. Well, I could just choose to cut you off out of my life. I can choose to just leave the church. Or I could choose to be like, hey, I'm confused. Can you help me understand what you're meaning? Like you're saying. Like, and obviously there's a point where if that church that is not speaking truth,
right.
after you've gone to them 1 or 2, 3 or 4 times being like, hey, what? if they don't figure things out, it could probably be a good choice to leave. But like
Right.
what you're meaning is just somebody's offended you, just leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's yeah.
And the fight or flight takes in.
Yeah.
And that applies to every kind of relationship.
Yep.
That's how, like, I mean, even work relationships, you see people quitting jobs so much more these days. Like, whenever I worked at a fried chicken restaurant, y'all, a fried chicken restaurant, people would just walk out mid-shift.
Well, that's because they were mostly all weed people.
That's true. They were very high.
There's no side effects, bro.
Healthy.
It's from the earth, man.
It's scientific.
It's natural, bro.
Oh, gosh.
There's
so
side
many,
effects.
So many stories.
Everyone around you knows that there's side effects. And your weed friends telling you that, no, man, there's no side effects. Dude, you're fine. That's not a good accountability partner on side effects.
True. But there's like so many times when people are like, well, this person said this to me at work, so I'm quitting. Or like, I don't like the way that the leadership works and I haven't talked to them about it, but I'm just going to leave. And they don't give their 2-week notice. They just stop showing up.
Yeah, because that's the comfortable choice that they can
Right.
make. Because
They feel more
it
powerful
takes-
in that situation.
it takes more courage and actually more love to lay your life down and say, I'm going to have these hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this and I only wrote part of it. Love protects, sacrifices, and elevates. I don't
Yeah.
remember the full thing, but something that comes to mind is love protects what's true, sacrifices what's not, and elevates you to a higher understanding to then repeat the process.
Whoa.
I'm actually teaching myself to say pro rather than pra.
Wow.
It's
Fantastic.
slowly getting there.
Wow.
It just
That's
makes
not
me
the right
feel
one.
fancy.
That is how you say it.
I mean, that's
I know that's
how
how I
Process.
said it.
So, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how you
Yeah.
should say
I don't
it.
know how. I can't say it.
Process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Process.
That's
Prodex.
Prodex.
What's
Prodex.
Prodex?
That one I can't.
You mean
I don't,
protect?
pro. I'm just
Protect.
thinking of different pros.
What's- What are you trying to say?
It's fine.
Protect.
It's fine.
Oh my gosh.
I got Charlie horse. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Okay.
Oh, he actually needs help.
Oh no. Okay, we're fine. We're fine. I just need to keep my leg here for eternity. Okay, we're fine.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, love does not equal acceptance of destructive lifestyles and behaviors. Love requires us to actually do the opposite. Love requires us to fight, sacrifice, and make a way for those things to be put away with, to
Yeah.
be done with. And again, that doesn't mean that we don't love the person where they are, right? Because what does God do? He loves us where we are right now.
Yeah.
Because in loving, in actual love, you are growing that which is good. And he's loving us into the people he created us to be. So this whole idea of like, oh, you have to accept me. It's a same kind of thing. You have to accept me the way I am. Is a very destructive thing, right?
Yeah.
For one, it has the idea that we're just gonna stay the same, which is just not true. Even if you're not a Christian, your goal should not to be to stay the same. Your goal should be growing. You should be. Now the difference is, humans don't really have the greatest capacity just to keep growing as good people without the source of God. I saw this really cool video. This blew my mind. It's like in the creation story, God spoke to the water and then created fish. He spoke to the ground and created a tree. He spoke to himself and created man. He spoke to the sea to create fish because that's where they belong. He spoke to the trees because he spoke to the ground to make trees because that's where their natural place is. He spoke to God because that's what humans need to function as
Makes
their
sense.
source. I was like, whoa,
That's dope.
that is so good. So, again, like we humans need God as their source, and we will always have the wrong perception, the wrong definitions if God is not our source. And I think 2023, the world of 2023 is a great picture of the world trying to define love without God. Because what we got right now ain't working.
It's
But-
very destructive.
But God's love is the fuel to the kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Like everything he does is laced in love. Everything he does is empowered by love.
The phrase that really got my attention was it was the lifeblood
Yeah,
of heaven.
it is the lifeblood of heaven. I mean, like that is we're covered by his blood that he gave lovingly, right? He was the willing sacrifice, and so we need to make sure when we are operating in the spiritual gifts, we're operating as Christians, that everything that we're doing isn't through this selfish ambition. It isn't, about how cool I look right now on the stage or how cool I feel right now because I'm wearing Shure headphones speaking into a Shure microphone. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's actually for the reason of laying my life down as Jesus did, right? To love people. Because otherwise it's really not it's not a powerful thing. Like the story that Sean Bowles was sharing that impacted me was, he was at this conference thing and he was, with a group of prophet people and they were prophesying and there was people like doing all, cool prophetic words or whatever. And he's like, all he got was for people was like, he loves you. He loves you. He loves you. And he just felt the love of the Father for those people. And those were the most impactful prophetic words. Like those were the ones that like changed people's lives. And so we get it backwards a lot of times. I like what you said when you flip it.
Oh, yeah.
The root is love, right?
Yeah.
We get it backwards a lot of times. We think, oh, well, when I get to like understand all knowledge and all that, like the Bible, what Paul's saying is like it doesn't matter. It really won't impact people. It
Right.
won't have the effect. You could heal somebody, and if they don't feel the love of the Father, they're not going to come to Jesus.
Right.
And so that's really the purpose of all of these spiritual things. That's really the purpose of us being empowered, is to bring people to the knowledge of his love and the acceptance of his love. And so the danger of being powerful, like I think we said this.
Yeah.
The danger of, you're always dangerous, right? You're always like, and power equals being dangerous. We've been empowered. We have lots of power. But if we're not fueled by his love, it's really pointless.
Yeah.
And I think you said it. It's like, it's actually it's destructive because like you gave them this experience,
Right.
but you didn't. It's like that story of like, if you cast out a demon and you don't, and he doesn't accept the Lord, like 7 more demons will come
Right.
in his place.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that our goal and our heart is that we are giving people love in the best possible way. And even if you are not getting these crazy words of knowledge, you're not seeing all of these healings, you're not getting these amazing prophetic words or whatever, you don't have the title, you're not doing, but people are impacted by love, that's going to be, that will actually be way more beneficial. That will actually have way more impact than you getting, you reading somebody's mail because the Holy Spirit
Definitely
told you.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, how many times have we met somebody and they say all these nice things, but we walk away and we're like, oh, I feel weird about that.
Yeah.
Or you've met somebody and they said very minimally to you, but you're like, oh, that person's nice. Like, that's a cool person.
Yeah.
It's because of the spirit that they're functioning in.
Yeah.
Are you functioning in the spirit of God, which is love?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you functioning in a different spirit, which is not God?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So even like applying what you're saying, you can be bumbling over a prophetic word. You could be saying a prayer and basically saying the same thing multiple times and be functioning in the spirit of God in love.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be impactful to that person.
Yeah.
Or you could be right on, saying the right words, be super eloquent, and be functioning in like a spirit of selfishness and trying to like look really good and trying to impact the person, because if you don't, then you're gonna look dumb. Like, you know, thinking about all these things, and they're not, they might be impacted because God's good, but it's not gonna be as impactful for you or for them because love isn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no set rule on how long or short stuff has to be. When God moves, you just let it happen.
Yeah.
Like, and then that,
And it doesn't
that
have to sound fancy.
right, and like that
Yeah.
takes so much. Like when you stop focusing on how it sounds, how it looks,
Yeah.
how you think it's supposed to be, it takes off so much more pressure.
Yeah.
Like,
And it usually looks way cooler anyway.
And it's more authentic.
Yes.
Like people can feel that.
Yep.
Because it's like you're not like trying to do this thing.
right.
I was on a missions trip in
Did the guy
LA.
kiss your cheek?
This was after the cheek. I don't remember where we were. We were at this one church. They fed us pizza, and I napped on their pew. But anyway, pew pew. It was a big church. I don't even remember what we were there for, but my pastor wanted everyone to give a word, and I was like, oh Lord, there's nothing going on in there. Like it was blank. Like my brain, I barely remembered to breathe. Like I was so tired. It was the last night of, like, we were heading home right after this. We were driving home. I was like, I don't know, God, something's gonna happen. And I don't remember. I tell you what, I was so done. But I got up on the stage, which was like 6 steps higher than where everyone else was sitting. So you felt like super vulnerable. Like
You felt tall for the first time in your life.
Is that how it feels?
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
I always feel
You
6
say
steps.
yes, and you're like the same height.
I'm on stage whenever I'm dancing. I feel so much more taller.
That's true. But I got up there. I still didn't have anything. I said my word. Like, they hand me the microphone. I had a word now. I don't know what it was. I don't know how I sounded. I don't know what it said. And then afterwards, everyone was like, that was awesome. And I was like, okay, good. Because I wasn't there for that. And then, like, afterwards, I was like, I think they're, you know how you think they're just saying that to make me feel better because it actually sounded like crap. No, afterwards, this lady came up to me and she was like, your words spoke directly to me. My son is in foster care right now. I'm fighting to get him back. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. I still had no idea what I said. And I still don't. but it's just like
Cool story.
but it's just
You
that,
don't remember what you said.
no, it's that
I'm gonna put that in
you're
my notes.
trusting in the Lord and you're functioning in love. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, you're functioning in obedience, which we talked about.
Yeah.
And you're functioning in love because you're like, okay, well, God is the reason I'm here, so he's going to come through. And he did.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting. That was a very impactful moment because I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But God knows.
It's true.
And you don't actually have to remember. That's the cool part.
It's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we gotta hit
The road, Jack.
the road. I was gonna say the road, but we're not hitting the road. It's just time for youth
hallway.
group. Gotta hit the hallway.
Hit the
But
road.
before we hit the hallway,
I feel like
Maddie, would you like to say anything?
Let's just change that. Not hit the hallway.
what do you want
We're
to
just going
say?
to go to the youth room.
There we go.
We're gonna.
Would you like to say anything?
A verse just reminded me of whenever you guys are talking about love, John 13:4. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. I think it's something like that.
Yeah. I think that's probably around the same as 15:13.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's good.
That's a good word.
It's like pretty simple.
It's true.
13:34.
There you go.
You weren't
Yes.
all wrong.
Yes.
A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another.
So
Boom.
stop canceling each other. That ain't love.
Like a subscription.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm subscribed to Philip for the rest of my life.
it's true.
All right.
Instagram reel every day.
That's true, actually. There's like 15 a day. It's like, hey, man, I get you content that you want. I should be paid for this
You
service.
don't even have to scroll on Instagram. You just scroll on his
Yeah,
message.
basically. All right, y'all. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. And if you would like to donate, there is a link in the comments. See you next time.
The bell should have like a, when you hit it, it's like a live mas, like Taco Bell.
Alright, I quit.
All right.
I quit. No.
Good boy.
Oh, you can't leave until I leave. Yeah, it's not gonna work. We're on.
Hello. Can you stop with the voice?
Oh, I forgot about that.
It just sounds so natural.
I forgot it was on.
I was fully ready just to hear that the whole time.